I think he's a total spoofer.
What's he being a spoofer?
This is bullshit.
Wolves coming back from an offside position, but Shane Long was definitely onside. Shane Long has done it!
I'm going to enjoy tonight.
And you should as well.
Thanks very much.
Well done.
Bye.
Unless he's breastfeeding, he should be alright.
It's important not to believe everything you read on the internet, as I try and open the show here where James is still getting set up. But, as I was saying, important not to believe everything you read online, especially on Twitter. But has anyone seen those ALLI rumours to bows flying around? Surely there's no smoke without fire here, but as it turns out, they're actually complete BS. But it was fun while it lasted. Welcome back to Ireland Radar on Flirt 101.3 FM. James is just about set up and ready for today's show. Better late than never. Entered the studio at 1:59, by the way. James, anything to say for yourself?
It's always important to be on time as well, I would say.
You haven't even had time to adjust your mic. But it's fine, guys. The professional show. Remember we said, James, that we were going to go for the awards this year?
I don't know.
We're making a good go at it. Now, as I said, welcome back to Ireland Radar. Maybe now's not a good advertisement for this, but if you like the show, guys, why don't you tell your friends and family that Ireland Radar is coming to you live every Tuesday, 2 to 3 p.m. Of course, last semester we were 3 to 4 on a Monday. Now we are 2 to 3, as we are right now on a Tuesday. And what we will be doing, guys, we will be counting down the days to Ireland's World Cup playoff with Czech Republic, which is now only 65 days away, James.
It's hopefully starts to kind of really kind of start to fly by, because I think the whole nation is kind of just so fixated on the game and fixated on having all of our best players and stuff available, which we'll touch on.
Yes, just over 2 months away there as well. While we are here in the intro, we're going to do the usual begging for us to maybe, if you do enjoy the show, to leave your likes and your comments and pass it around.
And maybe rate us on Spotify as well.
Yeah, it feels kind of disgusting, but it's the way the world is. And if we don't beg you to feed the algorithm for us, not much is going to happen. And if you are listening, dear listener, on Thursday, please wish James French here a very happy birthday, as it is his birthday this Thursday.
Bro remembered?
Yeah, I remembered because it's also my mum's birthday. I'm very uncomfortable with that, but
let's move on.
Yes, what are we talking about today, James?
We are going to, later on in the show anyway, we have a very special guest. Johnny Ward is going to join us. I interviewed him yesterday just on the League of Ireland off-season and just some other broader questions about the state of the Irish football market. I know myself and yourself are big fans of League of Ireland Central podcast, which is Johnny obviously is co-host of. So it was very very nice to have him on the show. Fair
play to Johnny as well, because I think that Joseph only sent him the message asking him would he be down to do it in yesterday evening, and he straight away said yeah, be happy to do it. It was a great conversation. I edited it this morning and thoroughly enjoyed it, and you will too. That's coming up in just under 15 minutes time. Last week we talked about Ireland's midfield issues. It's been kind of a regular theme on the show. It's obviously the biggest conversation around Ireland's team is how weak the midfield is, and Josh Cullen's injury hasn't helped that. But I wanted to start to talk about today's show kind of in a position for strength for Ireland, as it has been for years, which is the defensive positions. But it's been even from what's already been a strong position, it's been quite a positive few weeks for Irish defenders.
Yeah, I think it seems fitting to start with the Premier League surprise winners at the weekend. 10-man Everton, who went to Villa Park, third place Aston Villa of course, and stole a 1-0 win, and obviously much of that was down to our man Jacob Ryan, who in his, I think the last 5 appearances he started as centre back for Everton, they've won every game, and he's also kept 5 clean sheets in those games as well. So a lot of Everton fans kind of talking about I've seen on X and stuff about their kind of hopes that he remains at centre back and is not put back to right full, where he's played for much of the season under Moyes. I think Gerard Brantwaite's come back into the Everton team, so I'd imagine Moyes will maybe slowly integrate Brantwaite back in, but you would imagine like he'll eventually go back into that starting 11 given his quality. So I think the broader questions for ourselves, as long as O'Brien's playing, to be honest I don't really mind, but I think the broader question for ourselves is like, O'Brien's played at centre back in 5 of Ireland's 6 World Cup qualifiers. His only starter right back obviously came in the opener against Hungary. and is kind of right centre back in that back three. Is that where we feel he fits into this Ireland team best? I'd probably say yeah.
Yeah, he's a fine player, Jake O'Brien. And he's someone we've been talking about, on different iterations of shows we've done here. But since he's been on Leon, we love players who go abroad and make a name for themselves. And I think the Irish defence, we've always been saying that the quality is there. But I think since he's been playing centre back more recently, I think it's also coincided with games that the centre halves have looked a lot more comfortable, especially Collins beside him. I think that definitely is the best pairing, which I think on paper is a bit of a funny one because they're both similar like builds and physical players, and maybe not the quickest.
Just both huge,
massive, like ourselves really. But yeah, it's great to see he's getting into the position. I didn't have too much complaints about him playing right back before, because do you remember under Sean Dyche when they bought him for, what was it, 20 million, however much it was, I don't have the number in front of me, but he just didn't come into the team, which was so surprising, because you look at a big lump of a lad who's 6'6" or something like that, and he didn't get played under a Sean Dyche team. It's so surprising, but he's been a mainstay of David Moyes' Everton side, even if it is been mostly a right back.
And it did kind of suit us when he was playing right back, because obviously Heimer we were playing a 3-back, but I was also kind of morphing into a 4-back at times as well.
We also have a million centre halves.
Yeah, so O'Brien playing right back was probably the best thing for the national team, so we could fit as many of our best players who are seemingly all centre backs into the team.
Yeah, and he said that it comes in a position of what they've got, like 5 clean sheets in the games that he's played at centre half, and hopefully he'd be able to keep that up for Ireland. I mean, I suppose just maybe like I don't think that position's probably under debate his as much. It is good to see him playing well. The only news that Coleman, is back on the bench and back in training is pretty big, because it feels like Coleman wouldn't need many minutes to get into the team, just with how big of his performances have been in our last 2 games, of course. But just that he's back on the pitch is excellent news, because how important he's been. Yeah,
I think realistically you want every player in the team playing every week and playing at the highest level they can. But I think Seamus is a unique case, given the last, obviously the 2 games back in November, the performance he put in despite playing literally very, very little to zero football of kind of a club level. And I think going into March, these next couple of months, ideally, obviously we'd love for you starting, but I think if he's just kind of there in matchday squads, maybe getting minutes off the bench, as long as he's kind of there in the thick of first team training, getting some minutes, I think he's going to start at right wing back, just because of how important he was over the last 2 games and his leadership. And obviously we're going into our biggest game in maybe a decade in terms of importance, so you obviously want your most experienced players and leaders on the pitch. So I think for Seamus it's just about kind of getting back on the bench, getting minutes off the bench. I don't think he has to exactly be playing every minute of every game for Everton to kind of guarantee his place in the Ireland team.
And of course, him being such a professional, he knows what he needs to do to keep his body in check. He's obviously been in the game for so long, and he kind of is a rare breed of football now, Seamus Coleman, because I feel like maybe not too long ago this wasn't that rare of a thing to have a player that still is using their club career, but maybe just to keep themselves fit for international football, and that seems to be the position that Seamus Coleman's career is in now. I bet if you ask people on Everton, especially the coaching staff, they probably think he's probably got a large role there as kind of a leader for players around the squad, maybe younger players.
Yeah, I think Patterson's at right back for them, obviously young right back. So he's obviously they probably would kind of like to have him starting, and maybe Coleman kind of taking a more senior role. But in terms of as well, obviously Robbie Brady back on the training pitch with Preston. So kind of our full-back options are brightening up slightly, given kind of there is issues kind of there with depth and kind of particularly at right back in terms of young players coming through. I know Sam Curtis got a loan to League Two, but we don't have that many kind of depth options at right back, and then it's kind of similar at left back.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that because Robbie Brady is someone that I think I championed. I want to say about a year ago when we were doing this show, maybe less than a year ago. But I remember when I was living in Bratislava for a few months, and we were talking about Robbie Brady was Ireland's Player of the Year, and that was a conversation we were having a year ago. But I think you fast forward a year, does he automatically get back into the scene? Because that was a pretty nasty injury he had. He hasn't played football in some time, and I've been incredibly impressed with Ryan Manning, and since they've dropped down to the Championship, Southampton, Ryan Manning has become an absolute mainstay in that Southampton team, and of course towards the end of the Premier League season was that too.
Yeah, I think we maybe talked about this last week. It's the case for any kind of player trying to get back into the Ireland team, whether it's Jason Knight or Robbie Brady. Given the last 3 kind of games, particularly the November camp, how well everyone done, how well everyone played. Like, I'm sure Heimer's going to want to stick with a lot of that team. So, I'd be very surprised if Brady does come in and retain his place. I think Manning has done enough probably to earn that starting spot in the last 4 games. And as you said, he's playing very consistently for Southampton. 26 games played this season, 4 goals, 2 assists. And it's not like, I know Robbie Brady's obviously kind of a real set piece threat for ourselves with his delivery, but Manning does take corners as well, doesn't he? He's he has been quite good at them for us as well. Obviously with the Liam scale guns against Portugal, I think, did he take that corner, or maybe was it Josh Cullen?
I can't remember now. I should remember, but
I think it could have been Cullen. So maybe my point has just been kind of shot down there. But at the same time, I think I think Manning is still quite adept at set pieces himself. So I think he probably does warrant his place regardless.
Yeah, obviously we go to the games together most of the time these days, but I think a lot of the discussion we have is when the team is looking like a bit weak when he's not been in the squad. Manning is that you'd want to have a more attacking left back option in the side, and he's got that more bit pace of physicality of Robbie Brady. I did love what Robbie Brady brought to the side with the crosses from deep under Heimer, when it was very clear from his plan was to stretch the pitch as wide as possible. But my argument definitely would be if Seamus Coleman is playing in the right back, you don't really want two less mobile, 2 older wing backs kind of doing the job. And while Robbie Brady might be able to do some of the bits more that Heimer likes, I do think Ryan Manning's a real fit for the system. And I think under Kenny, my biggest complaint, or might have even been before Kenny, is when we did play wing back systems, is that we played kind of not the most mobile wing backs, which meant if you are playing a 5 at the back, you're expecting at least one of your wing backs to be an attacking threat. And I think if you play both Brady and Coleman, you kind of neutralise in one of those. Yeah,
I think when you're playing a 5 back in any team, you don't want 2 guys that are 34 plus. And I'm not saying Coleman's past or anything, far from that, because we've obviously just sang his praises there. But
and of course,
in terms of mobility and, as you said, kind of speed, you do need at least one of those players to kind of have that ability to get up forward and have more of a kind of attacking threat.
And of course, the same goes for Robbie Brady, of course, because of I think we've been big fans of him here too. And when he did solve our left back problem for quite a while, because that was a massive issue for us. And I think it's not so much anymore. Obviously, when we had to bring Kevin O'Toole into the squad, there was that issue that came up again, but that was more because of players' injuries rather than player ability there. Because
will Kevin O'Toole return to the setup?
I wouldn't bet. I'm not a betting man, but I wouldn't bet on ever hearing from Kevin O'Toole ever again.
I kind of just want to see him played, even in a friendly.
I'm so intrigued by it. It's kind of the same how I feel with Patrick Finn. I don't think we're seeing him again, but
Patrick Finn's a bit younger.
Not for a while, anyways.
Yeah, not for a while anyway. I would like to see Kevin O'Toole just playing a random friendly or something, just so I can have an opinion on him, because it's just. I was talking about Kevin O'Toole. I can't really say anything because I haven't seen him, and he's obviously playing MLS. We don't see any of those matches, so we can't really form any great opinion on him. Yeah, and of course we did the interview with American journalists at the time, and we found so much about Kevin O'Toole. That's enough about Kevin O'Toole. Why are we still talking about Kevin O'Toole? It's a new year. Who is Kevin O'Toole?
Yeah, I can't even remember who he is anymore. You want to talk about Collins as well. Collins has been on great form, despite maybe great timing for this. Made a mistake the last weekend. But I think we were talking to Michael Johnson last week, if you didn't hear that, that was recorded on Thursday. So maybe go back and listen. We had a great chat with Michael Johnson about Keane Andrews, had great points on what the Brentford fans expect from Keane Andrews and how good the Ireland contingent is. You can find that on Spotify if you'd like to find out more. I did the interview, it was great.
Shameless. Did you see his role in the second Chelsea goal, or the penalty?
No.
It was for me, there was a bit of debate on X about it. For me, it was kind of his fault. He gave Keller a really strong pass. It was just across the box. It was just far too strong for to be playing back to your keeper. Kelleher doesn't control it properly, and it's a penalty. But yeah, it is funny that we're about to single him out for praise while also dissecting a mistake last weekend.
That's just the way we do it over here. But he has been consistent recently. He's been playing very well football. I think Who Scored have him as one of the most informed players in the Premier League. I never know what to make of Who Scored rankings. I don't really know what how their algorithm works or anything.
Embrace the data revolution. James said analytics, Hearts top of the league, Shells got to win the league now.
Fair enough. But yeah, like it's good to see a lot of these players on form. Maybe there's still a question about the left centre back role, but it looks like it's going to be Collins and.
Why would there be questions?
Because we don't know who's.
Liam Scales.
Liam Scales. He's back in the Celtic team, isn't he?
Yeah, he's just like profile wise, he's the perfect left-sided centre back. Perfect player in general, but also at left centre back.
Yeah, very good. There's two people, like I unfortunately have to see James almost every day, and there's two people that James talks about every day. It's one of them is Tony Bloom, and the other one is Liam Scales. And
it's where I'm a Hearts fan or something. Yeah, I was just going to talk about like his. There's obviously been that debate about Collins being able to step up to the next level for like a couple of seasons now. He's 24, 25. I think he's 24, is he?
Collins is quite young, yeah.
Yeah, he's still only 24. The amount of like senior minutes he's played at the Premier League level is ridiculous, really. Like I know you talked to Michael last week. Like, did he?
Great chat. Everyone should listen.
I know he's talked about kind of Collins' inconsistencies, but did he kind of say about maybe his ability to step up to the next level, or maybe what are your own thoughts on it?
I see. My thoughts. I did see a lot of rumours saying that Nathan Collins should be the Ibrahima Konate replacement at Liverpool, but I think people could like listen to me talk about Collins because I talk about Collins a lot and I complain about Collins a lot, and I've never thought he's a bad player. The reason I talk about him a lot is because he frustrates me, because I think he's a very good player who's wildly inconsistent, and I think he's got all the tools to become a great centre half, and I just think he needs to sort out his consistency. But as you said, he is only 24. Once I do feel like a lot of pressure comes from like wearing the armband, and of course like the mantle of supposedly being Ireland's best centre back, which I think ability wise alone he is. He's had big moves in his career already. I think once he maybe gets even a bit more experience, I think you're maybe going to see someone in it, like once he reaches his peak years of maybe 27, 28, that kind of really develops into the centre back that he's going to be, because right now he's on a very steady progression.
Yeah, you think though, like if you look at the top teams, obviously Man City getting Mark Gahey, I think Gahey's like similar age, maybe a year younger than Collins. Like the market for getting like that kind of top young centre half is probably like where Collins is right now at his age. Like, so I think you'd imagine in the next year or two, if he's going to get a big move to the next level, it will be kind of soon. But I suppose we will wait and see about that. I know you were saying he's inconsistent, but according to Who Scored, he is one of the most informed players in the Premier League in the last 6 games, just to remind you.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's because I'm not always right about everything, except for when I am. Okay, we do have more to talk about here, but I think we should go to your chat with Johnny Ward now. What do you think?
Yeah,
very good. Right, we're going to play that for you now, and it's coming up right after these little audio bits.
I've never seen anything like it. My name has been desperately sullied.
In the least, Brian, but I think I saw you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But you never saw me with cocaine.
I never saw you with cocaine. You were always very clever.
Yeah, no.
I don't know if any of you've been cancelled before, but let me tell you, you don't want to be there.
So it looked like it was complicit in this whole RTE mess. So I'm sorry. We have. This has been the worst of times.
Johnny, how are you?
Very well, James.
Good. I think the only way to start this interview is Dele Alli to Bowes.
Dele Alli to Bowes, yeah. I think stranger things have happened in the League of Ireland, and I think with Lys Mousset signing last season for Bowes, and maybe Lys Mousset wasn't that kind of maybe people weren't that familiar with him, but this is something that gathered legs, and it was certainly fun to observe it on social media. But I don't know, I kind of get the feeling maybe Alan Reynolds and Stephen O'Donnell are a little bit wary now of kind of these mad signings, but we shall see. I'm not sure Dele Alli will be coming to the League of Ireland anytime soon.
I don't know if he'll start over Ross Tierney anyway, so even if he does join, so there'll be one to keep an eye on.
Ross Tierney is one of them players that I actually just love watching, like, and he's kind of one of those technicians that you love seeing in the League of Ireland, but I don't think there's anything to the Dele Alli stuff.
Yeah, we'll move swiftly on. Obviously with the League of Ireland kind of off season, the biggest kind of moves obviously with James McLean to Derry in recent days, James Clark also to Derry, Shells obviously with the Jamestown kind of stuff, and Jake Mulroney as well from Pats the Rovers. Kind of so far, who do you think's kind of won the off season and who's maybe lost it?
It's kind of hard to know. Like the The signings Derry have made, I think, are definitely decent. Like James Clark and McLean coming back. I think Clark's a really good signing. I actually think Rob Slevin signing from United for Derry City is a really good signing. I thought Derry City last season, I thought with Tiernan Lynch, they kind of needed. I think they needed a season where he was able to get used to the league, and I thought like for much of the second half of the season, they actually kind of they kind of looked like they knew what they were doing, and he sort of got to know the league a bit better, and maybe he learned a bit on the job as well. And I definitely feel Derry this season should, with the money that Philip Doherty's putting in, I think they should be contenders. Like their wage bill is very high. Like Philip Doherty's putting in about 2 million a year, and I know maybe it's not necessarily that easy to track players to Derry, but it is when you have that sort of money, and like the caliber of players they were signing last season, like White and the Northern Ireland internationals, proper players. I definitely think they'll be better as the season goes on. Shamrock Rovers are kind of hard. It's kind of hard to weigh up Shamrock Rovers. Jake Mulroney is a player that I kind of felt that he got criticism that was a little bit over the top at times, because I think with wingers, like, you are going to be a bit in and out, and Jake Mulroney, he was kind of this player that maybe people expected that Stephen Kenny would really get the best out in terms of his kind of I suppose he's an in and out type of player and a confidence player, and maybe he didn't show it previously for Pats, but I thought at times that season he wasn't too bad. Where he'll fit into the Shamrock Rovers system is kind of hard to know, because like you wouldn't necessarily imagine him to be a wing back. Shamrock Rovers can be a little bit flexible, but what'll happen with Jack Byrne will be very, very interesting as well. Like I thought last season was a bit odd, because Shamrock Rovers kind of went from being one of the contenders to having the league won in the space of, like, it felt like 2 or 3 weeks, and then the league became this kind of weird anticlimax up at the top, and Shamrock Rovers were able to focus on the European campaign. I thought they were actually very disappointing in Europe, and one thing that will be maybe a small bit challenging for them is that they've 2 seasons now where they've had very little of a break, and they went into at the start of last season with no break from the Conference League, and this season is kind of a little bit similar, even though they didn't go as far. So Stephen Bradley's going to have to I know Graham Burke was really just tired at the end of last season, and he's going to have to refresh things a little bit, but I still think Shamrock Rovers will be very hard to beat, because they kind of just know how to win leagues at this stage. And even last season, we'll see what happens with Michael Noonan, but like, he's going to be a much better player this season as he gets that year older. And like the Shells link that you mentioned is very interesting. They signed a player today that has kind of a decent enough pedigree.
Portuguese guy, is it?
Yeah, and I was just actually noticing that before we came on, and Luke Byrne seems to be talking up his credentials. It's kind of hard to know. Like, it hasn't been a dramatic off season really. I think Nugent going to Pats in the move that saw Mulroney go to Shamrock Rovers, he's a decent player. I think he could be a good signing for them. He's quite an energetic midfielder. I think
it shows kind of the depth like Rovers have to be getting rid of a guy like Aaron Nugent, and still kind of their midfield is so stacked.
Totally, like the amount of midfielders that they've had for years, really, and considering like Jack Byrne wasn't really missed last season, when he left. I don't think they needed him that much in the league, but Darren Nugent is a player, like, he was given a fair bit of experience in Europe because of his legs, but he is a good footballer. Like, I really think he gives something to Pats, and Pats are like, I think sport is an awful lot about the human nature of pressure on personalities, and Stephen Kenny will be under a lot of pressure this season. You expect that a former Ireland manager will go in and do well at Pats, and he's sort of, they've had good moments, but I thought last season, James, I thought it was very, very disappointing. The way they ended the season was quite flat, and you see the likes of Brandon Kavanagh move on. Players
a whole lot as well. Like, I think it's probably more about kind of getting rid of bodies and getting rid of players off the wage bill for Pats this summer. And it's hard to predict them to do too well, considering like they haven't been that busy compared to maybe Shells, Bows, or even obviously Rovers as well.
Yeah, I got the impression that there was just something about Pats watching them at times. I don't know, was it like there's and Keith Ward said this on our live show probably at the start of last season, if I remember right, or at the end of the previous season, where he was calling out the lack of winners in the Pats team, like the lack of serial winners, and I might be speculating, but I don't know, is it a great dressing room necessarily? I don't, like, Stephen Kenny, he inherited the squad. Now, he did give contract extensions to a lot of players, like, so you couldn't say he's blameless, and he's definitely been given a budget. But I think the balance for Pats is, or the main thing for Pats is getting the balance right in the team and getting players who are consistent, like not players who are very in and out. Like Aidan Keena was a real mystery. Like he just fell off a cliff almost after that goal in Terryland. He was having a brilliant start to the season. I think I tipped him to be top scorer, and I thought like he could nearly run away with it. He just literally collapsed in form. And there were players like that. Obviously Mulroney was in and out. I thought Chris Forrester, I don't know where Chris Forrester fits in now in that Pats team. Does he do enough kind of week in, week out? What's his best position at this stage? Jamie Lennon didn't necessarily have his best season either. And I just did wonder, was that kind of, the Pats, Gartland and Kenny team, was it working as well as it could have? And for me, they're fascinating. There'll be pressure on them straight away. They're the team really that I think the crowd is going to get at Pats if they don't start well.
Yeah, and I just wanted to kind of touch on, obviously, Shell's adopting Jameson Analytics, and as a Celtic fan who's witnessed what that can do in Scotland with Hearts top of the league and flying, do you think, I know they haven't obviously made too many kind of those Jamestown signings. I think it's kind of mainly just the Swedish guy, the Portuguese guy, and I think maybe Casey was down as a Jamestown signing as well. But do you think like if they do really adopt into using Tony Bloom's like analytics and stuff, that they can really kind of become maybe that best team in Ireland alongside Rovers in the next few years and really challenge consistently?
Yeah, like I'd be aware of Tony Bloom from horse racing as well, and he, for a guy who is so intelligent and so such a high achiever, like the fact that he would get involved in professional football and horse racing is quite something, because they are two absolute guaranteed ways to hemorrhage money. And I remember being at I was at a game in Tala, and the Hearts assistant manager, whose name escapes me, but he was with Graham Gartland that night, and I remember saying to him, God, yeah, you're after getting Tony Bloom in, and maybe he didn't know that much about him, but I wasn't expecting like the season that they've had. So it's a really interesting development. I think Shells are quite a progressive club. I know that like Talca Park is quite dilapidated, but the guys involved are very sharp individuals, a good mix of intelligent people there, and kind of young people who are kind of quite savvy in their various sectors in life. And Shells, for me, like, when you see the season that they had, to have that transition from Damien Duff, like it could have derailed them. But I'm as much as I kind of like I'm happy to believe that it will definitely work. I still think the League of Ireland it's such a quirky league that I think you really have to be kind of confident of the individuals coming in, that they'll adapt to the league. And like generally League of Ireland players coming from abroad, like they don't generally do that well. Like it's a league where, how are we going to attract players to the league with the budget restrictions? And even though the League of Ireland doesn't pay badly now, it's still a restricted kind of league in terms of budgets. So how can you find those little nuggets of players who haven't succeeded elsewhere, or are going to kind of be good players at the wage level that the League of Ireland is paying at? So I kind of have mixed views on it, but I would generally think that whatever that Shell's kind of ownership do, I'd stand by them. Like the Hart story, like the Tony Bloom story in general, and what he's done at Brighton is phenomenal.
Yeah, and I've been a victim of that with being a Celtic fan this season as well with Hearts and USG in Belgium as well. Actually, I think that they are kind of been taking over Belgian football since Tony Bloom took them over. You mentioned Michael Noonan obviously in recent days with the links to Celtic and links to Hoffenheim as well. I just wanted to kind of talk about maybe some of the younger guys that have left in recent times. Obviously, Amelia, Austin Vuna, obviously kind of going for big money in terms of League of Ireland context. Do you think maybe a better kind of bridge league for maybe the older players, like from 24 to 29, the likes of Honohan? I know Moylan's left in recent years, he's doing very well at the minute, but maybe other guys have went over to the EFL and came back. Do you think there's maybe like a bridge league in between that could kind of make them stick a bit more when they do get over to England?
Yeah, see, it's a tricky question in the sense of where the football landscape is kind of at post Brexit, I suppose, where moving to the continent is considered more of a normal thing, and you'll even have like you'll have some left field players that aren't under 18 moving to the continent. But I still think, James, like we're a post-colonial country really, and we still have massive ties to Britain, and we're basically born with an indoctrination of English football in our heads, and I think that's why for players who want to progress or at least move on the ladder, they want to try that next step in England, and I still think England or Scotland is going to be like the go-to call for them. It's really difficult. Like if you look at the wages that are paid to clubs, say in even League Two, and some of the crowds they get, like we look at England as this kind of as a comparison in terms of, and I used to look at it that way when I was younger, at how bad the League of Ireland crowds were, but like English football is a total and utter outlier. Like so is Scotland, to be fair. So the two of them together, but the crowds, like and how embedded it is in society over there is very, very abnormal actually. So even like basically every Irish player for me who goes up and considers himself stepping up into Britain, it's very, very difficult. It's really difficult. Because it's a global league, they can basically buy players, not young players obviously, but they can buy players from wherever they want. It's a massive, massive draw for players to go to England, and for a better bridge league, it's a tough question, that, because I don't think it's necessarily, I don't think you come back as a failure anymore. Like Graham Burke came back and has a great career in Ireland. I remember talking to Shawnee Maguire one day in an airport, and he was saying Graham Burke was the best player to train at Preston. But like some players, like for some reason it doesn't necessarily work out for them. I think Dawson Devoy was absolutely good enough. Again, I think he was probably a bit of a home bird. I think Graham Burke, I think Ross
Tierney, like I know Dan said this on the podcast a lot, that like Tierney and Devoy actually done reasonably well in England, and maybe they just came home because they're coming home, and the money is obviously kind of good nowadays in the League of Ireland with the wages coming up, and maybe it's not just like just because you come back from doesn't mean you've exactly failed, but like there's kind of other circumstances involved, if you get me.
But it's like, James, like whatever you want to do in your life, if you were offered a job in England in the morning, like you wouldn't necessarily be rushing to go there. You might just want to live at home. And English football, I think that linked to the fact that basically the Irish state and Irish football in general decided that, when after De Valera basically decided that the country could be self-sufficient in the 50s, everyone immigrated. My father was among them. And then in the 60s, everyone immigrated. And Irish football was a bit like that. They just neglected the League of Ireland for years and just said, let England look after them. And we have this massive history of players going over at ridiculous ages, like thinking that they'd kind of made it when it was difficult. But whatever it was in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s, it's way, way more difficult now. Like, you see just how small the Irish pool is in relevance in England compared to what it was, because it's a truly global league, for better or worse. So I don't know. I think Irish players are probably more open now to moving to other leagues than England, but ultimately it'll still be a draw because it's an English speaking country, it's close to home, and the wages are very, very high over there, very, very high if you succeed.
Yeah, just to touch on, I know you said Melia there, like he's probably going to be like the first litmus test of these young guys staying till 18, like our best talent staying till 18 and then moving on obviously to the Premier League or whatever. And we've obviously seen like the likes of Justin Verja signing for Crawley Town recently, Cathal Heffernan signing for Harrogate Town, and both guys that obviously went abroad and went to Italy rather than staying until they're 18. Like what do you kind of, I know it's kind of another hard question to kind of answer, but there probably isn't a perfect medium, but like what do you kind of think is maybe the best option for these young guys? Is it to go abroad younger? Is it to stay till 18 like Melia, or what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know the right answer for this. Like the two players you mentioned, I mean, there are certainly kind of questions about the background of both players in the sense of maybe advice they were getting at times. Like the Cathal Heffernan one didn't sit that well with me, how he was kind of being how such a big deal was made of the move to Italy in the first place, when realistically it was very, very unlikely to work out. And this is just statistically, I'm not sure if, I don't think, like, for the talents that Justin has and what he showed in Europe at a young age, Shamrock Rovers, there is no way he should have the sort of career trajectory he's had since. So I think he could have definitely made better choices, for better or worse. And I'm that's kind of an idle comment, but he has certainly or had the ability to prosper. Like the other young players, like Mason Melia going over, like he's another player for Spurs. Like even Noonan going over. Could you guarantee that these players will prosper? You can't. You just can't, because it's a totally different level. They're just a dot in the map in terms of like the players that the likes of Spurs can attract. And I do remember Keith Tracy, like, who's well served to talk about this, went over to Blackburn when he was young. He would very much be of the mind that the players will say, the likes of Mason Melia, who's basically had his underage development happen in a senior league in Ireland, he feels that you're missing out at top class training at an English system, we'll say. Like, and you look at some of the other players that have gone over, and the right back for Pats, whose name escapes me now, who's basically look brilliant going over. Young kids. His brother was very good as well, subsequently retired.
Oh, Sam Curtis.
Sam Curtis. And again, it's like Sam Curtis basically got all his development in the League of Ireland. Hasn't really worked out for him. Keith Tracy's viewpoint is that you're better off training every day at an elite underage level, at a top club than you are, we'll say, in the League of Ireland, where maybe the coaching isn't quite at that level at times, and physically you're developing and you're in a man's league. But I don't really know the answer to it, because I still feel it's a numbers game at the League of Ireland. The League of Ireland, in terms of the resources and the wages to produce young players, in terms of the deficiencies in our academy, it's still asking an awful lot. Like, Mason Melia is very unlikely to be a big success at Spurs. It's as simple as that. That's just the logic of it. He's only another young player that Spurs have signed, that may work out, but ultimately, like, if Evan Ferguson was our greatest hope ever, and you see like how difficult it has been for him even to live up to our expectations, it's unfair on Mason Mealy and Noonan, for example, for me, in my view anyway, to put too much weight or of expectation on them.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that goes both ways. Like, you could look at it that maybe League of Ireland clubs, when they playing these young guys from a certain age, getting them to play so many senior games, that they can maybe sell them on for a bit more money, which is definitely one kind of side of the coin you could look at.
Well, that's something that changed massively since you would have gotten even involved in league. Since I got involved, there were no transfer fees. We're talking about Seamus Coleman for 60 grand, and I think that the League of Ireland clubs, in fairness, as much as they have to protect the player, and I think Shamrock Rovers do this quite well. You see Ocean Vuna getting very little game time, even though he could have played more. I think that we've seen now that these are, to be talking about Michael Noonan being a 2 million player, that would have been laughed at, like absolutely laughed at. Michael Noonan didn't shoot the lights out this season in 2025 on the League of Ireland. He did fine. To see that shows that we are developing a bit of respect, and those big money signings do make a difference, because that's a kind of maybe a template then, or something that another club can aim for.
As you're kind of talking about, like Austin Vuna maybe not playing many games last season after the move, I was just going to like talk about maybe the role of young players in the league next year and going on. Like, I know maybe the success of Noonan Media might be kind of mask the issues with young players coming through the league, and obviously budget's only rising in the league as well. Like, do you think like there will continue to be as many young players coming up to the league, or maybe we'll see a maybe plateau with like kind of the rise in the budgets?
Yeah, that's a good question. Personally, I mean, I think John Daly was very good at Pats in relation to this, and maybe it's a bit forgotten. And you saw it in the cup final against Bows, like the amount of young players that were on at the end. I thought that was
Alex Nolan, Curtis, Melia, there was a lot of talent.
It's fantastic. See, like Alex Nolan was an absolute revelation that night. Did very well in patches for Cork City last season. But like, there was a suggestion that, you know, a certain number, I think, of your squad each week should be for an academy graduate, for example. Now, that type of idea for me, maybe it could be phased in, but I'd be all for that, where even say 5 members of your game time squad have to be academy graduates. I feel that the connection between the academy and the club has to be more pronounced than it is. And even Shamrock Rovers have brought, like, not that many players became regulars from the academy. A lot of them were sold on. Pats haven't necessarily done it that much under Stephen Kenny at Dundalk. Dundalk weren't apt to bring players through their academy really at all. I would argue Galway United's academy progression has been disappointing, really, to be honest. John Caulfield maybe isn't one to... Alex Murphy, got game time, but other than that, very, very few academy players have done much of note. And there's pressure on managers, obviously, to produce results. But I think you have to look at the longer term thing as well of the owner and the club giving the manager a chance to blood young players, because ultimately we've gone to government and looked for money for our academies, and you need to be able to show that these players are getting game time. I think it matters a lot to fans as well. Like, fans love players, young players coming through, really, really love that. If you keep like buying players, like Derry City is another example as well, where they're much kind of happier to buy players maybe for big money than really give academy graduates a chance. And I definitely think managers should get a bit of a pass for giving academy players a chance. And ultimately then it helps as well that the player, the more game time he gets, the more sellable he is in a crude sense down the line. But I wouldn't be confident necessarily, James. I think the point you make, the more wages that come in, the more difficult it is for academy players.
Yeah, you obviously touched on Galway there. I can't let you go without asking you what have you thought of Galway's off season and their hopes maybe heading into the new season.
It's going to be very, very difficult. Like, you know, I suppose Ollie Horgan passing away, maybe people wouldn't appreciate that, how much it must have affected everyone. I mean, in you know, the players to have this. It's all well and good losing somebody who's part of your work, a colleague at work, or maybe one of your bosses, or a guy who was like Ollie Horgan was one of the most larger than life characters. Like, to lose somebody like that is massive, and I do wonder about Liverpool and Dogo Jota, like how that's affected them. When something Dogo Jota was obviously totally unforeseen, and Ollie, there was a certain knowledge at the end that he was going to pass, and the players were aware that he was nearing the end, but at the same time they had to deal with that. And Ollie Horgan had a massive influence at Galway United if you look at results since he came in. So now John Caulfield has had to reshape that team. You know, John Caulfield is now one of the longest serving managers in the league. I think it's his seventh season, or certainly his sixth anyway, in terms of his sixth year involved. And I do feel it'll be very difficult. The players that have gone with lost some big names. I think Slevin is certainly a big one. Serious question marks about, you know, the strike force. Francis Lamboto, I've talked him up a bit, but he's had a few chances at this stage. You know, I think the ability is there, but you know, he's a bit of a punt. I think Alamin Kazim's a good signing, actually. I do feel him coming back has definitely helped, but ultimately he's a fullback. And like, I suppose the latter half of last season, we were disappointing. Like, I felt that the punch went out of us a little bit. I feel Dundalk will probably be okay. So after that, you know, we have to be better than the likes of Drogheda or Sligo. I'd have major question marks. So I really would. And I think we're another team that we kind of have to start well this season for the crowd to get behind us, because like I have found this a hard watch in terms of the football, I'd say, since Shane Keegan was in charge. Like, so you're talking about 8 years, I think, and the League of Ireland is not a bad watch, but we haven't played an attractive brand of football for me in a long time. So like, there's only so much I think fans will take in that regard when they'll watch a game on TV and everyone is passing the ball, we'll say, more or less anyway. So I think that's going to be a challenge for John Caulfield to get the fans behind. Chris Twardy could do okay, but like, it's a few years since I saw him now. I don't know. The guy, his club colleague who's come in as well, I don't know much about. John Caulfield seems to be talking him up. But ultimately, I'd be very wary this season, to be honest, James. I think we have lots of reasons to be wary, and we haven't made any sort of real marquee signings that you would say, you know, we'll be okay, because I think we were a team in the second half of last season that was definitely a relegation kind of candidate team.
Yeah, and in saying that, like, Sligo, obviously, Yelding and Hideki have not, like, they're not out the door yet. Maybe they will in the next few weeks, but they've also, like, brought in like a bit of quality as well, and that, like, they look to have kind of kept like, they obviously kept Brian O'Kane as well. Alex Nolan brought in, so like themselves and even Waterford keeping Conan Noon and Padraig Ammon's still there for now. Like, it does actually look like it's going to be like them two that are maybe above Galway at the minute in terms of the off season, but like, we'll see in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think John Russell, he just has a brilliant eye for the right type of player, and like, he's done an immense job at Sligo Rovers. I know, you know, I definitely love to see him as the manager of Galway United, from being from Mike Cullen and the brand of football they play. But he seems to sign the right. Alex Nolan's a very good footballer, so like, he seems to sign the right brand of player. Now, he's not going to hold on to those two lads you mentioned forever, but you know, it is difficult to watch the style of football we play. Like, and I still feel we shouldn't underestimate the fact that we've stayed up a couple of seasons in a row and had a brilliant season 2 seasons ago. There's no getting away from that. Like, a brilliant season, but like, I don't want to go to a game and like, know going in that it's not going to be entertaining pretty much every week. I just don't, and that's not a criticism of John Caulfield, because John Caulfield maybe plays a style of football that sort of suits the players he has, but this season I don't know where we're not going to change overnight in terms of the way we play, and it does grate me after a while, because like, Galway should be able to produce good footballers as well.
Perfect, yeah. And John, won't keep you for much longer. Just going to ask you, maybe, what was your kind of favourite signing of the off season so far? Maybe one that kind of has gone unnoticed that you think will do quite well.
Yeah, I'd probably, I think Slevin to Derry City. I really think he's I actually thought Slevin and Killian Bruder. I thought we had defenders who could pass the ball if we played in the system. Slevin for me was excellent for us last season. There was a game in, I think it was the 2-0 in Daily Mount. I think it was that game where Moses got the 2 goals. That was like the high of our season. The amount of blocks he made that night was phenomenal. He reminded me of Paul McGrath in Italia in USA '94, and put his body on the line. He's a really, really good sign, and I think because he plays for Galway United, people around the league won't get how good he is. Mark Connolly's moved on, so they've had that open. I feel he's going to develop into it and has become one of the top centre backs in the league.
That's perfect. Thanks very much, Johnny.
No problem.
I think, listen, the issue in regarding taking the knee, some people seen it as you're supporting a Marxist organisation. Marxist is, equality. This, what is Marxism like? Does Capital, for example, it's not Mein Kampf, is it? Do you know what I mean? It's not Mein Kampf. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, whether you believe or don't believe in it's not McCarthyism. To those who got Benya, and the first African-born player to play for Ireland. Very proud moment for a lot of people. I don't see it as a political issue, taking the knee. I think it's a humanitarian issue. It's just about supporting people. And we want the Irish team to make the Irish public proud, and we have to do that with our performances and our results. We have to do that, but it must be reflective of, it's a new multicultural Ireland and a new team that represents all facets of society. And that's the thing about football. It represents, every strand of society.
Always get a good laugh out of that audio bed, and of course thank you to our Supremo leader Ronan Calvert for making all those lovely audio beds that we do feature throughout the show. And great interview, James. Fair play to you, and fair play to Johnny for coming on, and got a great chat out of that. And
I kind of learned from your mistakes last week interviewing Michael, so I just kind of my approach then was just don't do what Dylan does, and then I should be fine. Like,
is that explains it? Is it okay? Right, it's everyone's favourite part of the show. Surely it's Fergie Watch, and what's up on Fergie Watch this week, James? Is it good or bad or ugly? What's happening?
It's kind of following the trend of being bad. He did not play in Roma's 2-0 win over Torino this weekend. Still out with an injury, I believe. New signing Daniel Mallon, who was got from Aston Villa, did score, and Vaz, the I think 18-year-old French striker they got from Marseille, came off the bench, so it is not looking good.
Not looking good indeed. Mike McGrath reporting this morning, that's Telegraph's Mike McGrath, that Roma are looking for a solution to the Evan Ferguson situation after new striker arrivals. That's Mallon and Vaz. The 21-year-old has interest from the Premier League and other teams in Europe. Among them are Fulham. Now, a lot of reports coming out of Fulham for their striker interests. It looks like a lot like they're looking to bring in a striker. One of the options is Ricardo Pepi, who's out injured at the moment, but that seems to be their number one target. But it seems like Ferguson would be a backup in this situation. What would you think about a move back to the Premier League? I think I know how exactly I'd stand. You're shaking your head at me. Yeah, this is not where he needs to be at his point of career, and especially Fulham, where he's not going to be the starting striker.
whoever is advising him, please do not advise him to go back to the Premier League. That's all I'd say. I think is Rodrigo Menez the starting striker for him?
Raúl Jiménez.
Raúl Jiménez there as well. Like, he does not need to go back to the Premier League at all. Like, he was actually gaining some momentum at Roma prior to like the injury or a couple of injuries. I don't know. I really don't know, to quote Roy Keane, about his next move. Where does he go? For me, as long as it's not the Premier League, I'll be kind of satisfied. But yeah, I think
he needs a move that will just think about March, getting his football up in March, and then I think just think about what's next for his career come this summer. I think his priority should be hopefully two Ireland games, and if he gets a loan move, that's probably what he should be in mind, just getting fit and firing for then.
I believe Fulham are looking at another Irish striker, are they?
Yes, it's have you heard of him? Troy Parrott? Has he been up to much recently?
The GOAT?
The GOAT. AZ Alkmaar have just recently sacked their manager, Martin Martins. They sit 8 in the Eredivisie. Obviously, Irish goals are flowing, and they have been from Troy Parrott this season, but it was Pex Walla's Anselmo Garcia McNulty who scored against AZ Alkmaar this weekend on the score sheet. We've obviously heard a lot of the reports, him linking him to Wolfsburg, which has been going on from the summer and longer now. But it looks like Fulham are also interested in him, as are Real Betis. What do you think about a move for Troy Parrott? Personally, I wouldn't like to see him move this window. AZ are a selling club. They'd be interested. I would say they'd be interested in getting rid of him. They have a young striker below him, and Max Meerdink, who is kind of supposed to be the hope of the Dutch national team striking question. I think they've just brought in a striker with a very funny name. I think Jiz Hornkamp.
What's funny about that?
Don't worry about it.
I seen something on Twitter about Meerdink that there's calls for him to be on the playing to the World Cup.
Well,
and he's not even starting.
The Netherlands are still playing Memphis Depay, who's playing in Brazil at the moment and racking up a big hotel bill, from what I read. But
they do have, like, they've. I know this isn't Holland Radar podcast, but like they do have Emmanuel Omega. They do have, who else? There's a Dutch striker in the Prem that's in form. Who is it?
Not Cody Gakpo, anyways.
They have Omega, and there was one other name that I know of, I think.
Okay, we don't have much time, so maybe we shouldn't be listing Dutch strikers. But what do you think about a move for Troy Parrott?
I think it's definitely became a lot more likely, given they've just, like, AZ have sacked their coach. That bit of uncertainty is there now. They sit 8 in the Eredivisie. Like, their prospects for the rest of the season probably not great. But like, from Troy's perspective, I think he wants to stay still. I don't think anything will change there. Like, I think he's probably looking at Ferguson as obviously his main rival to start in the Ireland team up front, and he's going to, like, be kind of with the mindset that he would want to stay for the end of the season, be guaranteed minutes as a starter, and therefore be guaranteed to start for Ireland in March.
Yeah, I don't think a new environment would be good for him, like heading into like the biggest games of his international career. I think he's probably going to want to stay in a comfortable environment where he's doing well, playing well, and feeling confident. And I think that's the one thing with Troy Parrott, is that he has the utmost confidence in himself. You've seen his ability. The rumours coming out, like, there's been a lot of reporting about a potential move to Wolfsburg, and ultimately I think it will be Germany that he ends up, but I don't think it will be until the summer. That he does back himself to be a Premier League player, but he doesn't want to go to the Premier League now and play for the likes of like a Leeds or Burnley, who are kind of sitting in the bottom half of the table. He wants to wait. I think 2027 or 2028 is the timeline that his team have put on it, where he would be in kind of a top 6 player by then, or someone that's not going to be in the bottom half of the table, which it's a lot of ambition, and it's quite intelligent, and it's a career planning that we haven't really seen from Irish players that much.
Yeah, it's definitely very kind of nice to see an Irish player with like a detailed plan of where they want their career to go to, rather than just kind of all rushing to get to the Premier League as soon as possible, which, as we've seen with a lot of Irish players, is kind of the mindset that they have. Wolfsburg obviously in the race. I think the 20 million bid for him in the summer.
Yeah, something
David
like that.
Snyder, I remember talking about that. Yeah, it's I think for me, I hope he does stay, to be honest.
Yeah, and also a lot of those reports coming also from Miguel Delaney, whose book I'm reading at the moment, States of Play. It's excellent. Miguel, come on the show. I'll talk about your book. I'll sell it for you. I know it's a great book. Come on the show, man.
What was I going to say about
you were going to say under the radar. Go on, give us some under the radar. What's for under the radar this
Under
week?
the radar, not too many options this week, and we've also because we've done this segment so much, there's a limited number of options we can do without repeating players. But I'm going to pick Jack Moylan, who I have had my eye on all season, kind of since he moved to Lincoln from Shells back in January 2024. I've kind of been following him, hoping he picks up a bit of form so I can put him in under the radar. And he picked up an assist in a 2-2 draw against Luton at the weekend. Jack Moylan, obviously 24 years of age, at Lincoln City, as I said, can play in the number 10 position where he's mainly played for Lincoln this season, can play also a striker and left wing as we've seen at Shells, had that kind of breakout year in 2023, got his move, and yeah, since that he's kind of struggled with injuries, made 69 appearances altogether, 11 goals and 6 assists, but then like he still is only 24, and from what like a lot of Irish fans, League of Ireland fans would have seen what he'd done for Shells, he had some absolutely brilliant goals in that kind of breakout season at Shells. Really kind of dynamic player, a profile of player that we kind of lack depth in the national pool. Very good carrier of the ball, and hopefully now we can kind of pick up form for Lincoln heading into the rest of the season. He started Lincoln's first 2 games this season before an injury ruled him out until the end of November, so he's only kind of back in the Lincoln team. The 10 appearances since he's been back, he's got 1 goal and 3 assists. And yeah, there is that kind of history of Irish players doing well at Lincoln. Danny Mandrao was like really, really productive at Lincoln. And then obviously came back to Shamrock Rovers, and Josh Honahan there at Lincoln now as well.
Which I suppose adds on to your chat that you had with Johnny, where it's like it almost needs to be a stepping stone between these players. I think the 42 were talking this week on their football podcast that it's like a lot of players are going over like what is the League of Ireland equivalent, because a lot of players are struggling from League of Ireland in League 2 even. It's hard to know how good these players are going over, and then some of these players are coming back better players at the same time.
I think I talked about this with Johnny, like there's no definitive answer, like Johnny mentioned Graham Burke. I'm not sure I made the final cut, but he was saying like Graham Burke, according to like a lot of lads that were at Preston, according to Shani Maguire, that he was the best trainer, one of the best technical players at Preston. And Graham, obviously playing for Preston, he obviously like contributed to them, but he wasn't like a standout player, as you would call it, like statistically or anything like that. But I think like from my perspective, it's not just about kind of, oh, this guy failed in England, this guy succeeded. Like it's very much about like what kind of profile the player is, and like I think if you have those physical characteristics, if you are a good athlete, quick, you're gonna adapt to the higher levels, which is of course League One. In this case, like you're gonna adapt to those levels much better than a guy who maybe is technically outstanding but physically maybe isn't great. Like I think even just to mention Dawson Hoy, Ross Tierney, who went over to England and Scotland and done pretty well. Like they didn't fail, but they saw opportunities to come home, and with the wages in the League of Ireland now, they can come home and play football for their boyhood clubs and earn a pretty good wage doing that. Like so I think there's definitely a broader debate to be had about, is there a better stepping stone than League 1 or League 2 for these League of Ireland players? It's a debate we don't really know the answer to, but what I would say is I don't think people should kind of categorise these guys as one guy's failed, one guy's succeeded. I think it's a lot more complicated than that. I'm
going to wrap up the show there. This has been Ireland Radar. It's been myself, Dylan Hudson. It's been James French. If you are listening on the podcast, please consider leaving us a review, some mention, some comments. Join the discussion. We love to get a discussion going on here. Of course, there's loads to talk about, loads of opinion to spread, whether it be good or bad. You're feeding the algorithm all the same. At the end of the day, we'd love to make something out of this.
And maybe subscribe to us on YouTube.
That would be.
We are looking to get more subscribers as all.
If you're listening live on Flirt FM, 101.3 FM, you'll catch us next week at 2 o'clock, same time, 2 and 3. We're going to be there every time. Also, if you're listening live on Flirt FM, we've got a treat up for you next. Coming up is a new show by a friend of ours, Donald Thompson. He's got Nosebleeds coming up next, a new sports show. He's going to be going through some of the stuff in history of sports. You might catch one of us on there someday. Definitely going to be listening. It's a great show. Please do stick tuned for that, because I know Donald's worked hard on this. He's been talking about it for a while, and I'm sure it's going to be a good listen. We're going to play you out with some music. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll chat you next week. We've got some new doubt coming up.